Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of four great interviews that we have lined up for you over the day. My name is Nigel. I'm the co-founder of Mayamada and organizer of the GamePad Online event. So we're going to get back to the live stream in just a moment. But right now, I want to, get to chatting to professionals in the video game industry, find out a bit about their journey, any advice they can give for people who aspire to get in the industry, or for people who are just curious how games are made. We'll give you that insight as well. So I am now speaking with the art director of Candy Crush Friends Saga at King, Riana McKeith. Riana, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to get a chance to talk to you today and hopefully share some of my insights and journey over the last, it must be 10 years in game counting.
If you had to calculate it's a while. I saw those calculations going off in your head. So just to let people know that you can join us in the chat if you aren't there already. Also join us in the Discord. Send us your comments or questions. We're going to have an extended version of this interview coming up after the event as well. We're also online on social media, so you can follow us at Mayamada on Twitter and at MyMadaTees on Instagram. So let's just jump into it and talk about arts direction. So, Riana, you joined King in 2018. Have I got that right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, we're off to a good start. And you lead a team of artists for Candy Crush Friends Saga. As you said, you've got over 10 years experience bringing stories to life through companies like Rovio, Wooga, and PopCap Games. And you've also worked on some stuff that we would have heard of. So Futurama, Game of Drones, Plants vs. Zombies, and Bejeweled on the iOS. So, like I said, we want to sort of talk and get to know a bit about your journey and maybe any skills and things that you feel that have kind of helped you get to where you are right now. So what I want to start with is I noticed that you have a background in animation. And, can you tell us a bit more about sort of what skills you picked up, where you picked up those animation skills, and sort of where you've applied them in the industry?
Yeah, sure. It's a really great question. I think when I was growing up in Ireland, I really loved computer games. I was so in love with them. I played them all the time. My mum worked in IT and she was a computer scientist, so we always had computers at home. And I was always playing games. But I really loved drawing and I really loved creating worlds and telling stories. And the sorts of artwork I drew were very stylized and cartoony and fun, kind of like the cartoons I saw, whether it be like Disney or anime or whatever. I was watching animation and I thought, well, games don't look like that anymore. Maybe the games I played when I was growing up, it looked like that. But not the games I started playing as a teenager, they didn't look like that. And I didn't think that there was space in the games industry to create the sorts of worlds and the sorts of art and the experiences I enjoyed. And also, I didn't know anything about the games industry in Ireland or what opportunities there might be. But the animation industry in Ireland was really strong. And studying animation in college was something I was really excited about. There was a couple of really great universities that had a long history of working closely with animation companies like Disney and Sullivan Bluth, and so there was a really strong animation industry and it was very well supported by the government. So we could see lots of really exciting
government support.
It's so important, especially for small studios like that. So there was those bigger studios had left Ireland, but there was still a lot of talent, and there's all these small studios like Cartoon Saloon and Cavalier and Brown Bag Studios were starting up in Ireland and gaining a lot of traction. And so I took the plunge and I went to study animation in university. And the system of kind of going to university is a bit different in Ireland than in the UK, but I went into university with a really wide selection of the equivalent of the A levels. I had studied all sorts of different things. I was interested in maths and physics and science and art.
That's
and
why I did that.
language.
That's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's so many, you have all these different sort of points of reference to draw on when you start creating your artwork. If you've done all these different things, like for me, it's so natural to be fascinated by all these different subjects. But it was something else to kind of plunge yourself into such a specialization. Mm-hmm. So I studied there, and in that particular industry and that particular university, the path was usually you would do a portfolio certification and then a diploma and then a degree. And at any stage you could leave and join the industry if you wanted. But I stuck around and did the full 5 years and studied classical animation and also 3D animation. And what it really taught me was a combination of really strong production skills. The advantage of animation is it's a production. They teach you how to be an employee. They're kind of preparing you for that role. So it's very grounded in core skills and methodology. And it also teaches you how to draw. Nothing like a course in classical animation to teach you how to draw, because it's essential. So we spend a lot of time honing our core craft. So I was lucky enough to get a job out of university in an animation company. Pure fluke. I like to say this sometimes to people who are looking for that first role. Like, so much of it is luck. I happen to know the software that I was using for my personal project for my final year. Animation was the same software a company was using to develop a 2D short film.
Oh, okay.
And they needed someone to lead their ink and paint team and help them structure that. So initially joined as an intern, and then helped create a pipeline along with a bunch of other interns to ink and paint this short film, which is incredible. If I hadn't have used that software, I'm not sure if I would have been able to kind of get that first step in the door.
Yeah, but I mean, you say luck, but you were using the right software, so you kind of you didn't have maybe the full foresight to know where that would land you, but you knew that was the software to use, and then that puts you in good stead.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I'm always taking the time to play with new tools and new technologies and explore and just build competency in those areas. Because something I always say to people who are looking for a start in the games industry is you really only have to show me as a hiring manager like one area of skill that you're really showing promise in. Yeah. Like one really good painting, one really good model, one like really good UI design is often enough for me to go, yep, this person can come in as an intern and really grow. So taking the time to develop those skills and also, I guess, to figure out where your interests lie. Like I spent those couple of years in animation being a production assistant and doing a bit of everything, doing a bit of 3D modeling, doing a bit of 3D animation, doing a bit of 2D animation and Flash, and other production assistant roles. It was a blessing in disguise because they made me redundant when the project ended. And I started looking around for something else, and I found that PopCap was hiring, and PopCap Games versus Zombies. And I saw those games and I saw what they were making, and I suddenly realized, wait a second, there are people making games that look like the sort of art I enjoy making. And I took the plunge and applied there and never looked back. It's been incredible to build a career in games.
So was the PopCap role your first games role? So did you go from animation to games to PopCap? Ah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I was lucky enough because the animation company I worked in, we were doing all sorts of different things. Like I said, sometimes I would do storyboarding. Sometimes I would do like audio recording. I went and helped out with some audio recording. Sometimes I do 3D animation. Sometimes it was those small companies like generalists and had different skills. And PopCap was actually, at the time, the PopCap in Dublin was also really small, and they were looking for generalists who could do kind of a bit of everything. And they could see that I could draw, and they could see that I could do some animation, and I was super eager and very nervous. Hopefully that impressed them.
That's like classic.
Super, yeah. So exactly, super eager, super nervous, and I came in as a junior artist there, to a very small team. I think we had 3 artists at the time working across the whole studio. The early days of game development on the phone. So I think the first project I worked on in games on a phone was actually Peggle, and it was for and I think it was for Sony Ericsson. So that will date it.
That is, yes. We might have to put like a Wikipedia link with this interview, just so some people in the stream knows what the.
What is the Sony Ericsson? There were still buttons on the phone for the numbers.
Yeah. You just like blown some people's minds right now. Like there were buttons on the phone.
Yeah, I know, 100%. I think like there's a couple of skills that I think have really helped me, especially early on. There was it's this passion and willingness to learn and explore, and I always think of it as I like to hire people who are curious, who want to understand, who want to know more, who want to learn and develop and dig and kind of get to that next level.
Yeah.
And so, what I found, one of the things that helped me really early on, I remember, a game designer would ask for a certain design or a certain asset, and you could just draw that thing straight out. Like they would go, "Oh, I want you to draw me a necklace or something." You could draw a necklace, or you could ask them, "Well, what's the necklace supposed to do? What's it serving in the game?
Yeah.
How's it going to fit the player?"
Because that changes what it looks like.
Best option? Are there other options that would serve the purpose? What is the gameplay rationale behind it? How do the players respond to it? And really think about it, dig deeper. For alternatives, offer suggestions, try and understand and get curious about what makes a good, in this case, necklace or not for the game. So one of the skills I think is really important.
That's an important, actually, it's a really important thing because so we do like comic story workshops, and one of the things that people sort of assume, maybe like rightfully so, is that you're there to learn how to draw. And I always have to like break it down. So one, I don't draw. We have an artist on our team, and she can draw, and otherwise everything would just look like a mess. So that's number one. But number two, I like to stress that it's not just about drawing; it's about the story behind it, and like you said, asking those questions. Because even when we make our manga, I'll write the story and I'll send it to the artist or our character description. And then she might suggest something that's better. So I'm not necessarily asking you to draw exactly what I've said. I'm just laying the sort of the groundwork. This is a story. This is the characters. This is what it is. And then I'm almost expecting sort of questions to come back. Because not every idea I have is the right idea. So you want that kind of feedback from people, not just I just want to draw this thing and be done. Because that only gets you so far, I find.
Completely right. And I think there's 2 other things you touched on there. There's the collaborative nature. I mean, some games are made by a person all alone, but the vast majority of games are made by a team.
Yeah.
And we're working together towards one end goal, which is the game. So it's not about the game designer's vision. It's not about the artist's vision. It's not about the coders or the producers. We're working together. So that means there's such an emphasis on being a good team player, like how to understand how and why you might communicate in some way, and how you deal with others is super important. And then the second thing, and this is really difficult, is that not to be too precious about your own idea.
Yeah.
You have to be ready to be challenged and come to a better idea and do your artwork again and again, again.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't get in the game, and then you have to do it again. So it's those kinds of combinations of things that
very true. Like
it's not the right drawing until it satisfies everyone's conditions.
Yeah. It's so even again to the workshops where like we get like kids and it ranges sort of like, you know, as young as 8 to sort of teens and stuff, and the amount of times I see people get fixed on like getting this perfect drawing, and without being too harsh, because you know the kids but I just want to like get across that don't worry about getting this perfect. It's never about perfect, and you're going to have to do it again when you come to do your comic. So that's an important thing, not to get too precious over like one design or an idea. So I was thinking about like just video games from maybe an outsider's perspective, and for someone who wants to get in video games, we often see it framed as like a super technical thing, and that the amount of times like I've seen people like equate coding with video games. So if you want to work in video games, you must know coding, otherwise the door is closed. So one of the sort of many reasons I wanted to speak to you today is just to give that other perspective. So as a sort of, I guess, a non-technical path into gaming, how do you think that awareness has changed, if it has changed, like now versus when you were first getting into gaming, that there are sort of non-technical routes into the industry?
Yeah, I hope it's changing. I mean, I remember when I first started talking about doing animation and art, my career guidance teacher sat me down and tried to convince me what I wanted to do was computer science. And I think there's a lot of that. Like, a lot of people are told, oh, if you want to get into the games industry, you should do computer science. And I think that works for some people, but there are so many different kinds of roles in games, and they have so many different routes into them. You know, if you want to be an artist, you don't, like, there's artists on my team who are not technical at all. And then, you know, people who really just focus strongly on pure art skills and come from a very artistic and creative background.
Yeah.
And even just an art team that goes all the way to the tech art teams who are really the tech artists who's sitting between that boundary between art and coding. So like, they know a lot about code, of course. But I do think that I do hope that the, you know, parents and teenagers and schools are learning to advise kids to think about their options a bit more broadly and see what's the right fit for them. There's a career in games for nearly every kind of person. There's games lawyers, there's games managers, there's games producers, game data scientists, psychologists in some companies, UX researchers, and player insights, and art. And there's so many different kinds of people who have different kinds of skills can all find an amazing home and career in games. It's about a shared passion about creating games. That's the important part.
Yeah.
And then the skill you bring to the table depends on what other interests and other avenues you've explored. But I think that's one of the common misconceptions. It would be nice to shake. There's so many different specialized.
Yeah, hopefully we can.
I barely know how to code.
Yeah. I did at one stage, and then I'm sure it slowly like dribbled out of my brain. But yeah, no, just like, yeah, there are definitely other routes into it. So welcome back. We're here with Riana McKeith, and we're gonna just jump straight into load more questions. We're gonna throw at her around artistic stuff and gaming. I think that is the title of this interview: artistic stuff in gaming.
Yeah, that's my official job title: Chief Creator, Artistic Stuff and Gaming.
There you go. I knew I got that from somewhere. So speaking of your current title as art director at King, I wanted to know, like, what's the distinction between sort of like an artist and art director? What does that mean in the context of working in a game studio?
Such a good question. And I'm going to be really bold and say, well, kind of depends on the company. Okay. So when it comes to titles, sometimes you'll find that different companies call the same job different things. But I think the simplest way of looking at it is that there are what we call individual contributors, and this is sort of a management and direction. So if you start your career in a games industry, you're probably going to start as an individual contributor. So that's for an artist kind of coming through, making actual assets, either making a piece of like a character or an environment or something like that. And at some point in your career, you get to a point where you can choose two different directions for yourself. One is going into what we call like kind of leadership positions, and the other is what we tend to call like a principal track. So principal is where you get really amazingly good at one specific area. So you could be a principal animator, for instance, like that. On the other hand, you can go into leadership, and that's where you start seeing titles like lead artist, art director, studio art director, vice president of art, that sort of track.
Vice president of art.
VP of art is a cool title. Yeah. we have one in King. He's an amazing guy called Aaron Alford. He's our VP of art.
Cool.
So what that often, again, this kind of sometimes depends on the different team and the different company. So I'm going to just say what I do in King. So in my team, I have about 10 artists reporting to me directly. So I manage them. And what that means is not only do I make sure they're working on the right thing at the right time, but they're getting the right feedback for that work. And also they personally are getting the right feedback and support so that they have a good life and a good career at King. So it's important for me to make sure that they are talking about their career options and growth, that they've got the right education opportunities, all that sort of stuff as well. So you've got essentially production and project management, and you've got art direction and artistic feedback, and then you've got people management. Some companies split those out, depends on the size of the team.
Yeah.
But for me, that means day to day, I have all of these different cool things to do. You also tend, as the art director, to sit at the leadership table of the team. And what that means is that you get a chance with some of the other leaders in the team, so the creative director or the game design lead, maybe the product lead, to really form the creative vision for the game. So from an art perspective, that means setting the artistic vision. How is this game going to look? How is it going to feel? What are the rules of the game? So what's the art style boil down to? What are the pillars? What makes this game look the way it does? So for Candy Crush Friends, I'll be the one saying whether that looks right. Kind of a quote. Looks right. But it means like I will help the artist make creative choices that make something look like it's from the world as everything else. I'm supposed to take all 10 artists and make it look like only one artist did all the art.
Yeah, I get that. So sticking to those like brand guidelines, I imagine, and
creating and forming the brand guidelines and really helping tease out what the game is going to be, where it's going, what any one feature we add to the game is trying to do, what the character is trying to do, and help the artists make their creative choices in a way that supports the overall art direction for the game.
Okay.
So you can see that a bunch of different skills need to be quite empathetic.
No, I get when you're dealing with people, you have to, So here's a question: How much actual art stuff do you do?
Well, this is why a lot of people, especially when they're mid-level artists, they'll dream of being an art director because we got all this control and power. You get to tell finally. But it does mean taking a step back from day-to-day art production. It can change over the lifetime of a project. So in the early days, you can be very hands-on. You tend to have quite a small team. You might be working directly. You might be making concept art yourself. But when you start getting into larger teams where maybe you have 10 people or 15 people or 20 people working on your art team, or in AAA, you might have like 100 people working in your art team, then you tend not to be doing hands-on artwork. What you tend to be doing is crafting, so mood boards, or doing a lot of feedback. Like feedback is something I do a lot. And sometimes you'll do paint overs, sometimes you won't. So it does tend to find that your majority of your artwork you're going to be doing is in your spare time.
Okay.
But Yeah. And then the other thing is, as an art director, your job is to hire artists who are way more talented than you are, and get them to do the artwork. So the game looks. So it comes to a point where in my day to day, like, oh, I could do the character design for this, but my character designer is so much better. What I want to do is
and that's why they're there.
And that's why they're there. They're amazing at that job, and they're a specialist. So it makes sense to get them to do it. So it's about what I find. It's a balance between finding opportunities to see your creative vision in the game as an art director, and finding opportunities to build your craft and deepen your craft knowledge, so that you can also keep up with all your amazingly talented artists, so you can give them valid feedback, and then also find opportunities for you as an artist to draw things that you're interested in. So I spend a lot more time now as an art director in my spare time doing art than I did when I was a mid-level artist, because I would have been drawing all day.
You had enough. But
you had to carve out the time.
Yeah, I get that. So I'm making an assumption that people watching this would have heard of Candy Crush, and I feel that back in the days when we did leave our houses and go on public transport, it's highly likely you will see someone playing Candy Crush. But just for anyone who isn't in that bracket, could you just tell us what Candy Crush is, and specifically because you're working on Candy Crush Friends Saga, what the difference is in that game, or what that game is bringing? I'm asking for the sales pitch here, basically. So,
exciting. So, of course, Candy Crush revolutionized mobile games and sort of put just a really charming, fun puzzle game into your pocket that's super engaging and just really well crafted to give this sort of endless joy. It's kind of like, we always thought it was a pick up and play kind of activity.
Yeah.
And of course, it's played by like millions of people around the world. Sometimes it staggers me. I think the last figures I heard, just to speak to your like how many people in the world are playing. I think this was from very early on this year, so I think the numbers have changed, but it was like over 240 million people playing our games every month from King. Just sort of insane. So you get to see your game on the tube a lot, but essentially, where the match 3 games are where you see a puzzle of colored objects. In case of candy, it's obviously candy, and your job as a gamer is to make matches of 3. When you make a match of 3 or more, they dissolve, and you have certain targets. So that's essentially what Candy Crush does. What we did in Friends was really twofold. Like, the first thing, we really wanted to bring friends into the game. So in Candy Crush Friends, we have these amazing 3D characters who join you in your puzzle and help you smash candies, and they are as varied as a Yeti and a unicorn and a troll made out of bubblegum and a little dog made out of donuts, and they join you and help you pass levels. So it's a character collection mechanic. So it's super exciting. And we also built like these amazing 3D worlds. So we're trying to bring the candy world to life, which up until, we were able with the previous candy game to build this pop-up game full of like pop-up paper puzzles and sort of a pop-up paper book. And this one, we built the whole thing in 3D. So hopefully players get a real sense of the adventure they're going on with these characters.
Cool.
That's Candy Friends.
Okay. And like when you're on the tube and you see people playing it, have you ever had the urge to like go over to them and just say, "Hey, I kind of made that"?
So many.
Or tell them
times.
how to play the game. Like, you're playing the game wrong. This is actually how you do it.
Yeah, I was sitting on a plane before lockdown. Obviously, when we were traveling more, I was sitting on a plane and I was like nudging my husband, going like, "Look over there, she's playing Candy Friends," and I want to go over and tell her. And because particularly we had just launched a new character, and I was super excited, and I wanted to know if she liked it or not. Tempted to kind of go over and go like, "Oh, I made that." Yeah, see it in the wild. So I've never actually told someone I was making the game, I think most people when they're commuting or traveling are probably, especially in London, they don't want to be like talked to. You don't even want to make eye contact, right?
Yeah.
But I have had the opportunity in King. We like to bring the players in for events. So I have actually met players in player events and got to talk to them about why they play our games and what they think of them. So that's both humbling and really rewarding.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. Like when people like something that you've produced and sent out into the world and go, "Oh, I like this," and it's like, "Okay, that's cool. Someone's actually enjoying this." So
yeah, and when you see your artwork on a billboard, or like I was walking through a shopping mall in Ireland at one stage, and I saw some of the artwork. I was like, "Oh my god!" Such a bizarre feeling. You know, when you're in the office, you're making this thing, and you push it live. And you kind of forget that means that millions of people have it, that it's turning up ads around the world, and it's something else when you actually just see it. Yeah. It's really it's at home.
Totally get that.
Make as an artist. Yeah.
Cool. And like Candy Crush being a mobile game, so I'm interested. So like, there's always like the sort of debate mobile games, and I feel there's almost like a hierarchy or a certain amount of snobbery in terms of like what is a quote unquote real game. So like, for me, for example, like, I don't usually play games on my mobile just because I have this long-standing thing of like anything that could drain battery life. So I've got in this habit of just not putting anything additional on my phone. That's me. But it's always weird for me to hear people who sort of discount mobile games, and I find there's a certain amount of, if I don't play it, it's not a real game. And I think it's the same with like, I don't know, if you play Call of Duty, not to disparage all Call of Duty players, but there'll be people like, if it's not Call of Duty or a game like that, it's not a real game. And I think there needs to be more understanding of the different formats and styles of games. So like, what do you think sort of mobile gaming is doing or bringing to the industry? Because it's getting bigger, or it's already massive, and
it's enormous. I think what made King special originally is it really challenged what the assumptions of what a gamer is and what they wanted, and actually made gaming a much more inclusive place, because they sort of broke apart from the expectations of what the game had to deliver. Like, oh, it has to be a action or PG, or it has to be a shooter or something like that, or it has to be grim and gritty to be taken seriously. And I think people were just really looking for something like that, you know, and it was missing in their lives before that. There's certainly space in the world for all kinds of different gameplay experiences, and you know, we sometimes like to compartmentalize gamers into little boxes, and they'll go, oh, those are the hardcore gamers, and oh, these are the gamers. The reality is that's just not how it works. People move from different spaces and play different things at different times of the day, at different times of the week, in different locations. You can have someone like me. I mean, I play shooters. I play mid-core and hardcore games at home, but I also play games on my phone when I'm commuting, and I'm like, when my husband has something on the TV that I'm not interested in, you know, or whatever, you know, you can be both.
Yeah.
And I think we like to kind of separate them out. I think something I think about a lot is, it's kind of going to be very silly, but food is food, whether it's
that's a true statement. I like meal.
Yeah, exactly. I know, right? So far, so good.
Yeah.
Whether it's a 5-course meal in a Michelin-starred restaurant, or it's a sandwich from Pret, it is food. And we don't judge this. Like, you know, we know that we want different things at different times, depending on circumstances. And, you know, you can like all of it. You can like a bowl of popcorn, and you can like a roast duck or something. And it's not, they're not mutually exclusive. And I would like people to think about that these games are bringing, a lot of these mobile games are bringing these like moments of pleasure and relaxation and calm to people's otherwise really busy and stressful lives, and they're not necessarily high intensity experiences where you're having like really on the moment high energy like game experiences. Not every game has to do that. Some games can be chill and relaxing. Make them any less valid or valuable or any less of a game either. So I think I remember when I joined the games industry first, I was surprised at how tribal people could be about this stuff. Like that there's indie people and there's the AAA people and there's the casual games and mobile games people and the hyper casual games people and there's sort of everyone's looking at the other people going like, oh, you're a sellout, or oh, you're not.
You can't cross over.
You're like, but it's not really true. And you can see now that games, as the mobile games industry matures, you can see this huge crossover from console games and indie games onto mobile platforms. And similarly, you can see Steam taking a lot like of games which initially you would have seen as kind of either AAA or mobile, and they're on Steam. And then the AAA consoles are bringing all these indie games in and puzzle games. And I think that's bleeding across. And I don't think we'll see these distinctions as strongly anymore.
No, it's like different experiences. And like you say, I think the value in like with mobile games is it offers some inclusion. So, you don't have to be the quote unquote hardcore gamer just playing one type of game to enjoy the medium, and I think that's a positive thing all around, even though I'm not someone who necessarily plays games, mobile games, so I can absolutely see the value in them. So again, speaking of the industry, you mentioned tribal, so I should say, are you playing PlayStation or Xbox? What are you? Let me just disregard everything you said, and then
Well, I have been an Xbox gamer and a PlayStation gamer in my past lives. I currently have a PlayStation 4 and I currently have a Switch and a PC which I play games. I will, again, I'm not going to which one is better or not. If this is like you games industry, pick a console, have a little fight about it. I think sometimes it's you like to stir it a little bit on Twitter, go like, which one are you? They're all excellent consoles. They're all lovely.
Okay.
Enjoy.
I tried. I've been asking people this question, and everyone's like, everyone I speak to is reasonable. And
I know. Unfortunately.
Okay. So as we come to the end of the chat, I just wanted to get your view on sort of where the industry is in terms of like diversity. So I know that there was a UK game census last year that shows sort of different levels of representation, and obviously I think it showed there's room for improvement. And like from your perspective, what do you think the value of diversity? I'm kind of asking a question I already know the answer to, but I was like, what do you think is the value of like diversity in the games industry, and how that can be improved? Because why it's an interesting question for many reasons, but earlier in this, I think it was this year, I forget how time works. Let's say it was this year, earlier this year. It was definitely pre-pandemic. So I was doing some work with a college, and they have quite a sort of technical focus, and they have a games course, and I was speaking to the principal, and he was saying how sort of their remit was to increase levels of diversity in terms of ethnic diversity, but also like gender diversity. And he was the one that mentioned to me, like, so some of the girls in the college like equate coding with gaming, and then therefore if they believe they can't code, which is not necessarily always the case, but if they believe that, then they're sort of put off. So like, which is a shame. And for you, so back to my sort of question, what do you feel diversity brings to the games industry?
I mean, it's obviously something everyone's been talking about for years. Yeah. We all know how important it is. Like the industry has proven time and again that, and the research has proven time and again that diverse teams with strong inclusion create better products. They make better decisions, and they make better games. And you don't have to look far to get that information. It's out there. The fact that we're still got so long to go can be exhausting, I know, for marginalized and underrepresented groups and sort of intersectional, especially intersectional groups. But I think we're making progress. It's so slow. We can do better, but we are making progress. When the first game job I started in, I was the only female member, like female member of staff for a long time. And now, to give you an example, we have a portfolio of games, 5 games, and in the group I'm working in.
Yeah.
And of those 5 games, 4 of the art directors and art leads are women.
Okay.
So we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
I know that it has very high aspirations of how we can hire more diversely and recruit and more diversely and make sure that we're really challenging ourselves to think about all aspects of how we bring people into the industry so that we're actually creating like an inclusive hiring process. And then when actually you get all those amazing, talented people in a room, all those different life experiences, all those different ways of thinking, ways of communicating, different approaches to the same problem, under a much better understanding of our players. I mean, like I said, we've got this like over 240 million players. I can't remember how much over, but it is over. That is the very definition of diverse. that crosses a gender boundaries, that crosses the continents. They speak hundreds of different languages. They have loads of different socioeconomic backgrounds. They have loads of different political affiliations. How can you represent those people if you're not actively recruiting diverse teams and find ways once they're in your team to be inclusive as well? Because that's always the second part. Like diversity is stage 1. Stage 2. Making sure that when you're doing your processes and your teams, you're being inclusive. But what I think is amazing, and there's such an amazing opportunity for games, is to start telling and creating more diverse stories and exploring. Like there's so many amazing ideas and people out there who are just waiting for an opportunity to make a game about something they love and something they identify with. And we have, and when we deliver that game to our audiences, we have the power to change people's minds and change people's lives. But if we keep telling the same things, if we keep hiring the same people, if we keep on making the same games, this is not going to happen.
Totally get that. Because I'm sort of a particular leaning towards storytelling and how games can be used as a storytelling medium and how they're becoming more complex and telling different narratives. And then you think if you get the same people telling the same stories over and over again, sooner or later you will be done with that. And you just need like different perspectives, and that is for me like the value of storytelling. It's allowing you to see from another person's perspective. So it just makes sense that you'd want to tell different stories. And going back to my point about sort of like mobile games and different types of gamers, it's not to say that every story is necessarily for you. Like there might be a story that you're not particularly interested in, and that's fine, but it doesn't make it any less valid. So I totally agree with you on all that, and in particular the storytelling aspect of it.
And I think what's really, really important about why games in particular should do this is because when you think about it, you the player playing this story, this interactive world, and you have the opportunity to make choices in that. And I think that when your other storytelling mediums can be quite passive, the fact that this is active, it has such power to really help people identify with the situations other people may experience. So, I'm a cishet white woman. Like, I have so much privilege in my background. I'm also quite middle class. So, like, I've had an amazing start in life, and I can't begin to understand the challenges that other people may have faced. However, if I was given a game which, through the interactive element, gave me opportunities to really explore what would I do in this situation, how would I react, what choices would I make, how would I feel? And the fact that our medium is interactive gives players that much deeper connection, I believe, with what choices and what experiences may mean for you. So that's why I think the power of games to really change people's minds, really awaken them to new experiences, is we should not squander by just telling the same stories from the same over and over again.
Totally agree.
Not to cast aspersions on the other media that's created by all my amazing co-workers in the games industries. They're brilliant, but there's room for.
I think that's the thing. It's not one over the other. It's room.
Exactly. It's both.
Yeah, exactly. It's have your cake and eat it too. I think that's a sort of a good note to sort of bring it all into. So thank you for joining me. It's been really good to hear like your perspectives and just your experience in the industry, and then definitely bringing that, like I say, that non-technical awareness to the conversation.
A real pleasure chatting to you today, and best of luck for the rest of your conversations.
Cool. Thank you. Just wanted to remind everyone that, as always, you can send us your feedback and your comments. We're going to be having more conversations like this, just trying to open up debate. And, well, not really, we didn't have a debate, but discussion, open up the discussion around topics in the games industry. So please, you can join our Discord, which is open now, and also follow us online, and just stay tuned to what we have coming next. I should also do a shameless plug for our podcast. So if you'd like hearing the sound of my voice, and you also want to see more of our GamePad host Tazzy, we also do a podcast called Story X Story, where we talk about stories across pop culture, including video games. We have interviews and just like deep dives into different stories, and it often gets quite philosophical at times. You can check that out on our website as well. And our email address is gamepad@mymatter.com. Again, please do send us your feedback or any questions. And until next time, stay tuned and take care, everyone.